Hey, everybody. Mark and I have over 20 years of experience as therapists and as addicts in long-term successful recovery. We know better than anyone what works and what doesn't to break out of porn and sex addiction, heal betrayal trauma, and reclaim your relationship.
And we've poured all of our personal and professional recovery and healing experience into a first-of-its-kind program for addicts, spouses, and couples. We call it Dare to Connect.
At least 4 times every week, we engage with you in real time, in the trenches, giving you the knowledge and the tools to take back your life and relationship.
Whatever else you've done on your journey for healing and recovery, you've never done anything like this.
Mark and I, we've made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Don't reinvent the wheel.
We all know tomorrow never comes. Look, don't wait one more day to change. Claim your free 2-week trial today at daretoconnectnow.com.
Hey, everybody. I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSE Squared podcast.
Hey, everybody, Mark and Steve on the PBSE podcast. We had a question come in. I don't know, Steve, how many times have we received this question over the last 20 plus years of our experience?
It's a lot, and it's a tough one. It really is.
It is a way tough topic. We just want you all to know that as we tackle this, we are hyper aware of the territory that we're daring to step into.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go ahead and read the question situation that has come in, and we are going to tackle this.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Let's do it.
So here's what it says. Hi, Mark and Steve. PBS podcast really has been such a godsend, helping inform my husband and I of the possibility of hope and healing. We had our 4th D-Day. For all of you that don't know, D-Day is Discovery Day, when the addict comes clean with what's gone on in the past. Apparently, this couple has had their 4th one. We kind of call that trickle discovery, right?
Yes.
Or, not a good idea. But we had our 4th D-Day a few months ago, but in some ways it was the very first, as we finally have acknowledged the impact my husband's porn addiction has had on our marriage. And they've been married 4 years, and the damage that's come about from ignoring it. We are really starting to experience some great progress, even after a few months of fighting for genuine connection. My question, however, is this: why do men often struggle with the concept of monogamy? My husband and I really struggle to see eye to eye on this, as he seems to believe that men are wired to notice and to be drawn to the physical bodies of other women. He also believes that then monogamy is a choice to live the best way God intended and to choose to not act on those desires, and it will be a constant battle with temptation for him. He does not see a day in the future when he will not value and be curious about female-specific body parts on others, even recovered from porn addiction. Is this the porn addiction speaking? Or is there an element of truth to this? This is so outside of my own experience of sexuality as a woman, and I'm really challenged to see a future with someone who will always prize female sexualized body parts, mine, but also the general public, and see that as normal. I've loved the episodes that have touched on public encounters and experiences and making a plan with your spouse for these areas that could be challenging. However, I would love to hear this facet answered on the PBSE podcast if you're willing. Thanks so much. All the best.
Awesome.
There we go.
It's a good question, and it brings up even a variety of things, but we are going to kind of zero in on one specific kind of side of this here in just a second. So if we just kind of lay the groundwork for a second now, we're going to give the caveat right out the gate that, again, this is a submission. And so we're waiting, as always, as we do on this podcast, into a snapshot of somebody's relationship. Okay. So we're not privy to the details, the background, any of that stuff. We just know what we're given. But what it sounds like on the surface is we've got two partners who, understandably, I think in many ways, due to fear, are kind of based in two extremes, right? We have one spouse, and again, this is a very common dynamic we see. We've got one spouse, the partner here, who is, or excuse me, the addict, who he's living in a place of fear, among other things, that about, and we're going to quote his terminology, right? That he's in quote he's going to always be in a constant battle with temptation the rest of his life, and that this is always going to be an issue or a struggle for him, right? That I'm going to go throughout my day, and I'm going to be constantly battling this idea of, body parts in the environment and objectifying people and women, and that's something I'm going to be constantly facing. And then on the other hand, we have a partner here who is saying, and she's also exhibiting a lot of fear, probably among some other things, and is saying that, I will, she's fearful that, quote, he will always value and be curious, right? And then also, quote, also value and or prize sexualized female body parts, and that he's never going to be dedicated to her, right? Because of this.
Yeah.
She's scared, in other words, that he is always going to be, among other things, going to be in this sexualized headspace, and that no matter how much change he may do around pornography and other sexual behaviors, that he will always be walking around with this element of sexualizing other women, right? And it's never going to be able to change, and it's going to be this constant area of challenge. And so we kind of, what I see, and Mark and I know we talked a little bit about this before we started here, is I think we've got two people who are probably living in probably idealized extremes, right? We've got the addict partner who fears that this will just be a constant uphill battle. It's going to be like, I don't know, the Battle of Normandy every day, right? From a sexual perspective in terms of staying sober. And then we've got a partner who is coming from a place of, well, if he was really attracted and loving, right? Or if he was really, quote unquote, healed or recovered, that he would be coming from a place, if he'd be attracted to me, but not to all of these other people, right? That he'd be attracted to me, and that this would be more or less a non-issue with anyone else, right? So that's kind of what we're reading into it. So if we're misreading that, again, apologies in advance. That could change the game a little bit, but that's kind of where I think we're coming from.
Well, and it's very understandable to see these two opposite sides. I mean,
Yes.
Steve and I have been there, where we literally had battled, and he used, this term is used, he's always going to battle this, right? He's always going to go to war with this. We had battled this whole thing of uncontrolled attraction, which we need to say what that is. It's called lust, right? Unbridled, uncontrolled, obsessive, compulsive
Acted on.
is lust.
Acted on.
Yeah, acted on. It's a very good term. Acted on is
toxically acted on.
Toxically acted on. Big giant challenge for guys struggling with addiction, trying to be in recovery, and we fear it. We're exhausted by it. We constantly go to war with it. And Steve and I got to the places where we just said, I don't want to be attracted to anyone or anything ever again the rest of my entire life.
Yep.
Right? Cut it off, shut it off. It cannot exist in my life. No attraction allowed, period. And we wrestled with that.
And I think every guy goes through that, right?
Sure they do. Right? Yeah.
I mean, it's natural. This thing is destroying my life. It's destroying my marriage. My sexuality is ruining me, right? My sexuality, therefore, must be the problem.
Yeah.
I've got to eradicate that. If I could just get rid of that pesky sexuality.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, right? Is that we live in a world where the goal of recovery, to borrow a quote from 12-step style of living, is we want to be connected and present with our environment. We want to, quote, live life on life's terms, right? Real recovery is about the opposite of finding new things to escape, like we did in our addiction. It's not about running from certain areas of life. It's about learning how to connect in healthy ways, right? To embrace life as it happens.
Yep.
And to be able to live and be present with it, rather than just another form of, something to remove myself from or isolate from. And that means engaging with and understanding these two concepts of lust and attraction.
Yeah.
And what they are and what they aren't. Because this topic of lust versus attraction comes up all the time.
All the time.
We've been talking
And
Yeah,
our
go
hearts
ahead.
go out. Our hearts go out to these partners and spouses who are, buried and immersed in betrayal trauma, trying to come through their healing process. As they see an addict partner who struggles with this, they're wondering, is he ever going to have eyes solely for me? Is he always going to be unfaithful with his gaze and with his thinking and with his attractions? Am I always going to face the fact that I'm in competition? Right? Is this guy ever going to be fully present with me and not have this whole thing with everyone around us?
Mhm.
It's horribly traumatizing to go through that and wonder. And every time you go into a public space, you're like, oh, here we go again. Right? Can't go to the mall, can't go to the restaurant, can't, God forbid, go to the public swimming pool or the beach or the lake. Right? It's such a burden.
Yeah.
So our hearts really feel that.
So yeah, so we're going to try to break down these two very hard topics and try to help you guys in the process. We're working on healthy versus toxic sexuality right now in Dare to Connect. We're wrapping up the topic for the month, and we've touched on this among many other nuances of this topic. We'd love to have you guys join us, by the way, as we wrap up the topic this week. You can find more information at daretoconnectnow.com along with a 2-week free trial. We'd love to have you guys come join us where we can really get more in detail on what is a very complex topic. But
Yeah.
if we were to kind of try to tackle this, right, I guess maybe we start with attraction. So can we talk about attraction for a minute and just kind of what that is?
Yeah, let's talk about what it's really, and it's understandable how addiction and trauma, both betrayal and struggling with obsessive compulsive addiction over years or decades, how those two things could tend to, quote, weaponize or intensify or villainize attraction. Very
Yeah.
normal to see how that word could be turned into the enemy. Absolutely true.
Yes.
I think it's important that we understand what attraction in its pure sense is. I like Steve and I kind of looked at some definition. I like this definition. It said the relationship existing between things or persons that are naturally or involuntarily drawn together, drawn toward each other. We are, as human beings, we are naturally, by the very evolution of our species, by our very genetics, we are built to notice people and things around us. We need to. We need to be aware for danger or for cues or for situation, right? It's a normal human characteristic that's as essential to our survival, our happiness, our peace, our joy, our interaction, our connection. We have to notice. We have to notice who and what is around us. That is a natural part of us. And like that definition says, that it's either natural or in many cases involuntary to be drawn towards certain people or things. It's
Yes.
just a part of our humanness. And
Yeah.
what I'm attracted to, what I feel an attraction toward, right? A noticing of people or things around me is not going to be the same as necessarily the person standing next to me. It's based on a lifetime of experience, a lifetime of memories, a lifetime of preferences, a lifetime of exposure to different people and things. And so I've got a brain that's like a satellite dish, taking in everyone and everything around it and tuning in to certain people or things based on my lifetime of experience. And many
Yeah.
times I don't have any voluntary control over it. It just happens, right?
No, I
It's
mean
attraction.
we just go throughout our day, right? I mean, in my practice, whether it's physically or emotionally or spiritually, I find myself attracted to varying degrees with clients, right? I have clients that, in another life, we might be like really good buddies because we just kind of jive, right? Personality wise.
Mm-hmm.
I also have other clients where I could tell it's going to be probably pretty easy to keep this just business,
Right.
right? And there won't be much joking in our sessions, which is fine, right? And again, that spans the spectrum. I mean, as I go to the grocery store, as I again engage with clients, whatever, I run into attractive female clients or people in the environment all the time, right? That for whatever reason, they just, again, there's a mix of, I just resonate with that person, right? On
Yeah,
any one of those spectrums or a
there's even
combination of
times
those.
where I'm in public or at the gym or someplace where I find myself noticing or attracted to certain guys.
Mm.
He's got a certain physique, or he's in a certain kind of physical shape, or I can tell by a t-shirt he's wearing that he's into a certain sport or activity, right? Maybe it's one I'm into, and I
Yeah.
notice him right away. I go like, whoa, look at the calves on that guy. I'll bet he's a cyclist,
Yeah.
right? I find myself moving toward that particular person.
And by the way, it's not just people, right? These are certain things. We all have different hobbies or things that we gravitate to, right? Certain things that we really enjoy doing, certain things that we don't. So it's important that as we look at this attraction element, right? Attraction is something that just is, right? A good way to look at it is, I love Mark's definition, right? It's an energy, right? That exists between us as people, us in our environment. Lust, in other words, attraction is something that is simply just present, right?
Yeah,
Lust,
it's very passive. It's
yes,
very passive. In many cases, it's involuntary and really kind of subconscious or even unconscious.
sure, absolutely. Now we contrast that though with other words like love or hate or lust, right? Those are all action words. So those are all things that where we are taking something from our environment, in this case, this attraction or lack thereof, and doing something with it,
Yeah,
right?
yes, it's an action. It goes from more passive, just something that's human, to something that now is intentional. It's an action word, right? I'm
Yes.
exercising my focus. I'm exercising my choosing what to turn my mind to and focus upon and give energy to.
Yes. Absolutely. The example we commonly use in Dare to Connect is well, one that I use is I look at attraction like a hammer sitting on a desk, right? It's a tool. It's just a hammer. It's just sitting there, right? It just is. The hammer is always there in one way, shape, or form, whether it's sexually, emotionally, whatever the case may be. What I do with the hammer is what dictates my trajectory as far as, like, for example, my sexuality goes with regard, excuse me, to recovery, right? Because I can take a hammer and I can build really amazing things, or I can murder somebody with a hammer, right? And the hammer is not responsible, right? The hammer is simply just the thing that I engage with to facilitate something in the environment. Historically speaking, I as an addict would take that attractive element to other people, usually sexually, but in other ways as well. And what would I do with it? I'd objectify, I'd escape, I'd numb out, I'd tune out from things, I'd strip away people's humanity and just leave selective components of themselves there, whether it's physically or otherwise, right? That's what I used to do with it, and I would use that as a way to escape and to live in a fantasy world,
Yeah, it's
right?
same for me. It's where I'm taking something that's just a normal, natural part of the world around me, the people around me, and I'm exaggerating it. I'm
Correct.
intensifying it. I'm calling special attention to it, as opposed to it just being a part of the human puzzle, right?
Absolutely.
It's being selected out of the whole as something to give enormous energy to. That's where we
Sure.
leave the place of natural involuntary attraction and we enter the place of active intentional lust.
Yes,
Very different environment, very different ways to come at the world.
for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I can probably speak to a good example for this just because of my unique position. My wife has an identical twin, right? Biologically identical. I'm
Mm.
very highly attracted to my wife, which means that in a physical way, at least by default, I am going to be attracted to my sister in law. They look virtually the same, right? But what I do with that physicality, what I do with that attraction with my wife is night and day different with what I do mentally and emotionally with my sister-in-law,
Yeah.
right? Me and my sister-in-law, we have a very great platonic relationship, and I'm able to appreciate the fact that she is very physically attractive and an emotionally attractive person as well. But the one that I gravitate to, the one that I act on that attraction with, the one that I engage with and I enhance it and I build it out and I develop it, right? Emotionally, physically, spiritually, all those things, the one that I explore that with and grow it out is with my wife, right? That's where I choose to engage. I choose to allow that to build out and to create love. It creates a depth. It it draws me to her in a way that I am not drawn to anybody else on the planet.
And
Right?
I like your term, the one that I choose to act on that attraction with
Yes,
my wife.
absolutely.
Right? As a human being, my brain's going to be going to feel some natural attraction to many people and many things.
Absolutely.
But I get to decide once I've experienced that feeling, what do I do with it?
Correct.
Do I act on it or not act on it?
Yeah, I've been sober for the better part of 9 years now, and I can tell you that the old Steve, like we said at the beginning of this, would have loved nothing more to like just surgically cut out his sexuality like some sort of tumor's growth and just like thrown it in a bin somewhere. But that's absolutely not the case because I would never want to get rid of my sexuality now because there's an element of spark of what attracts me to other people that continues to cause me to be attracted to my wife. I never want to get rid of that. Mark and I were doing a Dare to Connect episode probably over a year ago. And I'd probably heard this term before, but for some reason it just really resonated. I love it. I repeat it all the time because I never forgot when Mark said it. Right? We take these things in our environment, including attraction, and we choose how we channel it. The term that he used, right?
Yes.
It's this natural energy that's just occurring. What do we do with it? How do we funnel it? How do we channel it? Where do we direct it? Right? The energy itself is not the problem. Your husband's sexuality, your wife's sexuality, it's not the problem. What's being done with it is the problem,
Yes.
right?
And
And that's
and
where we've got
again,
to separate.
where we started today, it's very understandable that this concept of attraction in our intense emotional state of addiction or a very intense emotional state of betrayal, trauma, healing, addiction recovery, it's very understandable to see how a feeling called attraction, an energy called attraction, could be incredibly triggering.
Totally.
Absolutely understandable. The question is, once we start to get into recovery and healing and more healthy living, how do we begin now to manage that energy? It's
Yes.
going to show up. And I know I've had guys I worked with and I felt this way say, Mark, I don't want to deal with it. I just want the attraction to be gone.
Yeah, sorry.
Hey, well, let's stop for a second and really consider what you just said. Do you really want all attraction that you feel or notice towards other human beings to be completely gone from you? Do you know what that means? And we talk about what that means. And they're like, ooh, I guess I probably don't want what I'm saying, do I?
Yeah.
Like, well, no, it's horrible to think of being bereft of all attraction for all people, period.
Absolutely.
Right. And when I talk with, women who are suffering under the heavy burden of betrayal trauma, where they say, no my husband should not notice anyone but me. Well, let's talk about what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're able to step back and talk about it in more of a balanced and healthy way, to kind of to be willing to step outside the pain for a minute, and we start to look at it like, maybe my pain has led me to an extreme place where I'm not seeing that there is a balance here. There is a healthy set of choices. Now, this person that wrote into us, she uses some very powerful language with regard to her partner. She said he values, and the one that jumped out at me, he prizes specific sexualized female body parts. Now, I know that's her expressing that. I don't know what the accuracy is with him. But I want to make clear, if this guy does indeed have some form of voyeurism or obsessive compulsive focus on female body parts, and it's a big part of an addiction struggle, he absolutely should confront that and work on it and get help for it, right? Seek therapy, seek the help of a support system, because that is absolutely something that needs to be dealt with directly.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about with regard to just normal humanized attraction. So
No.
if her words are accurate as to how he sees this, he definitely needs to confront this in his recovery.
Yeah.
So I want to make that very clear.
So we are, and admittedly, again, we got to wrap up, but we are dealing with some semantics here. But I guess where if we were to kind of take this full circle, to answer some questions, and this may be hard to hear. It is not going to be realistic for either an addict or a spouse to expect to expect either partner to sustainably be not attracted to anyone else ever. That's not realistic. That's not human. That's not life. What a partner can absolutely and ought to expect is that her partner, even though he may be attracted to at times other people, that he will choose her every time, right? That there will always be that cognitive choice. There will be that active drawing towards. There will be that fighting, battling for, discovering, building with them. That's where that exclusivity comes into play.
Yeah, and it's his responsibility to notice when the energy of attraction is showing up in him, and then immediately use his tools to shift and to direct and to manage that energy in the healthy direction that he and his partner want it to go.
Yes.
Right? So can he control when the attraction energy shows up on the stage of his mind? He can't. But once it does, it's now his response hyphen ability to direct that intentionally.
100% his responsibility.
Forward. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. No, it's 100% the truth, guys. That's how realistic, sustainable recovery works, right? A healthy marriage in the long term is not going to be one where one partner is, and again, we really connect with you partners why you would understandably feel averse to this, just
Absolutely.
like, again, in some ways addicts do. His sexuality has been the problem. If we just somehow got rid of that where he wasn't attracted to the people, then problem solved. But that, again, that's not realistic, but it's also not sustainable because part of what draws him to you is that same energy. It's all about harnessing, channeling, and re-engaging that, right, in a different, healthier way that allows us to connect with the areas of life that we want to connect with in the appropriate right ways while learning how to redirect away from the things that aren't healthy to connect with in that way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah. And so we would encourage this coupleship and all coupleships to get this topic out on the table. Talk about it, dialogue about it, talk about what's reasonable, what's not, talk about what your boundaries are, what your expectations are, what are your needs in order for this relationship to work, right? Dialogue, and getting leaving room for humanness, for the energy of living in a world, but also being very clear and very succinct about here's what I need from you in order to feel chosen, in order to feel desired and cherished. This is what I need. And then to open up that dialogue and talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks for letting us, as always, letting us into your lives for a few minutes every week. We appreciate all your patronage and the kind words we get from you on a consistent basis. As always, you're welcome to send us new episode topics at pbsepodcast.com. There's a contact form down at the bottom there. We'd love to hear from you. Anything we can answer briefly. And please do check out Dare to Connect Now at daretoconnectnow.com. If you haven't joined it, if you haven't tried it, please do. Come discover how to level this thing up and take this to the next level. We would love to have you there and love to take your recovery to some new heights. So anyway.
All right, everybody, thanks for being here with us on such a tough topic. And we will pick things back up next time on PBSE.
Sounds great, guys. Bye-bye.
Everything expressed on the PBSE podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.